Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Winterpeg Report. I am your host, Mark Adam, and I will be joined today by Paul Little, who is the artistic director for the Purple Room, amongst many other hats that he wears. We are going to be talking to him for about an hour or so. And this podcast is available in video format on our YouTube channel. For those that are listening to the audio version, there is a video you can watch. For those seeing the video, obviously, if you want, you can throw this in your favorite podcast app and off you go as well. So just find and follow the Winterpeg Report on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And it's available on a lot of them: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Breaker, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Casts. I'm probably missing some. So if you generally listen to podcasts through it, we're probably there. So just a heads up. So without further ado, welcome, sir. This is, again, Paul Little, who, if you're involved in music or comedy or even stand-up stuff, but open mics and things, you might know this guy's face. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So for those that don't know, you run this little organization called the Purple Room, and can you tell us first and foremost, what is the Purple Room?
So the Purple Room currently is, I would say, a mobile or a portable or a roving venue. We produce shows at various spaces all across the city of Winnipeg. Our indoor home base is XQ's Cafe and Lounge on Sargent the last couple of years. That's usually where we'll put on indoor shows. And our outdoor home base for many years has been the Cube at Old Market Square during the summers. The last couple of years, obviously, with the pandemic, they haven't opened it up, so we haven't been able to do anything there. We also do stuff at the Manitoba Night Market at Assiniboia Downs. And so, yeah, and anywhere else, really, that we have the opportunity to put on a show at.
Nice. And so it wasn't just yourself that founded the Purple Room, was it? Or was it?
Yes and no. So it was me. Yeah. It was me that initiated it, but I had some help at the beginning because when it started, it was a physical venue in a place that no longer exists. It's now an apartment building, but it was a space called Frame Arts Warehouse that was an interesting place. It had artist studios on multiple floors, and then the main floor had a bunch of open spaces. And one of those spaces, after a number of years of Frame operating, the Purple Room moved into one of those main floor spaces and kind of became the de facto venue in Frame Arts Warehouse. And so there were several people that helped get that started, but I was the one organizing and booking and doing, the logo and the website and producing the initial events. And then over time, a variety of people helped out. There was a time when we tried to move the Purple Room into a new space that was our own, more of a legitimate business, regular venue type place. And at that point, there were several other people that came on board and were part of the Purple Room team. And then when we kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but it, just changed or moved or just became what we are now, it kind of, again, fell to me to initiate that and kind of make that decision. But again, all the events that we put on, we have so much help. People like Tanis Kelm, who I know you've worked with on events. You yourself have helped with events with the Purple Room at the night market anyway, for sure. Help produce those. All the people that help with our open mic CaRaVaN, they're all part of the Purple Room team, but like I'm the one that, handles the emails and runs things. So for better or worse.
So you mentioned the CaRaVaN Open Mic, which is something that you guys run. Would you say that as far as the Purple Room is concerned, that the CaRaVaN Open Mic and Stage would be like your flagship event, or
Yeah, so CaRaVaN predates the Purple
Ooh.
Room. CaRaVaN was founded a little over 10 years ago by one of the people who ran Frame Arts Warehouse, Ali Tatarin, and when the Purple Room opened, CaRaVaN moved into that space, and then my and Cellulars kind of took ownership of the open mic over time. And then as the Purple Room Frame shut down and the Purple Room started moving around places, CaRaVaN kind of moved with it. So it has definitely become the flagship event, certainly the regular event. It happens weekly, whether online or in person. We don't like to ever miss a week, so there's consistency with that. Whereas all the other events, especially during the pandemic in the last 2 years, have been sporadic at best. The night markets have happened in the summer, which has been great, but all the other events happen when they can, but CaRaVaN is consistent. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of people when they stumble upon CaRaVaN, especially for the first time, they don't quite know the difference between the Purple Room and CaRaVaN and what it is. And that's fine because we have a website for CaRaVaN, but we don't have like separate social media channels. We do everything under the Purple Room.
You guys have a
for
Facebook,
Instagram
is there not a Facebook
that sort of thing.
Group? Yeah.
There's a Facebook group meant to have like a group discussion. But as far as like branding type things, it's all under the Purple Room. The group is more of an independent thing. Again, it predates the Purple Room. The group existed. You can go back and look at posts from 10 years ago deciding, oh, what night should we do this event at? What should we, the real beginning evolution of CaRaVaN, you can like trace back from that Facebook group that still exists.
Just so people understand, CaRaVanOpenMic.com is the website. It is a separate sort of thing,
there.
But it has sort of fallen under the Purple Room banner in over time. Right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There is
and so
a Facebook
I would
group
say
you
the
can
Purple
join
Room,
if you were interested in just that.
There is, yes.
But then the Purple Room is the sort of driving force behind it all, yeah?
Yeah. Like when we do live streams and when we do things like that, it's all under the Purple Room. Like I said, we put on other events too, night market events, and it hasn't happened for a couple of years, but a Sonic Spotlight series, which is like a music showcase. And because of my involvement in it, we also produce the comedy game show Pants on Fire. Just again, because it's a production house, I guess, a live production house. I don't know what these words mean. These are all terms that you hear around in the industry. What do people call themselves? What do organizations call themselves? We're a loosely put together event production group that has a logo.
So a loose-knit group of this is your elevator pitch. We are a loose-knit group of people with common goals and a loose-knit organization structure that makes events sometimes. Is that as vague as you can get?
Yeah. I mean, there's a better description on the website. On both of the websites, CaRaVaN website has a great description of what CaRaVaN is as an open mic, and the Purple Room has a great description on what it is now and what it started with. And a lot of people still, even though we were only a physical venue for 2.5 years, and it's now been coming up on 9 years since that opened. So we've been not a physical venue for a lot more time. A lot of people still have fond memories of that space and that time period, and so still associate, rightfully so, myself as well, a Purple Room with that 2.5 years of time in that space, because it was such a unique venue
for
to go see a show at.
I'll tell you how the very first time I saw the Purple Room brand, period, was at the night market. I was there helping out Drew Spades from New Spades Sound and Entertainment. I was there helping him just film some stuff and do some branding stuff. And we're walking through the inside, and there's this stage, because there's a big stage outside and big bands and DJ and the whole works. And then there was at that time there was a smaller stage inside, and there was all this branding on it, the Purple Room, and it was all lit up in purple lights. And I was like, what the heck is that? Because I had no idea. And it turns out that it was because
you're not from here.
To be fair, I moved to Winnipeg in 2014, so I am not born and bred in Winnipeg. Sorry to anybody who thought I was. But so this come from away from the East Coast, just walking through being like, oh, look, some people playing acoustic music, which is totally my jam. I love it. And that's how I saw your branding. And it's funny because I don't think I spoke to you for a year after till a year later. Like, I don't think you and I met. Like, I didn't introduce myself to you.
That was a conscious choice.
Like, I saw you and I was like, no, not that guy. Yeah, no.
I'm not speaking to that guy. No.
The only guy as bald as me.
Beard, bald, no,
we don't need to replicate. But and it's funny because, like I said, I didn't reach out to you until a year later, and it was I forget the context even, but and now we've become, I would say friends, but we've definitely done some sort of work together and tried to build the music scene as much as we can in our limited capacity. So that was my first experience of the Purple Room. So I don't have that fond, like, this is a physical space, but in my brain I was like, oh, they must be a venue and be like providing the music for this, which maybe at the time you were.
No, at that time we had already, we were already not a physical space. If you moved to Winnipeg in 2014, you basically just missed it. The window was March 2012 to August 2014. And I moved here in
July 2014. So that's really funny. And I didn't go to my first night market until the year later.
We were at that point, that summer we were a fringe venue. Again, it kind of precipitated what would come because we couldn't be a fringe venue in our actual space because of the different city codes and things like that. So we actually had a separate space that we turned into the Purple Room for fringe that year and then put on events. And so, we had already, I guess, started the idea of being a venue and being wherever we can be.
And so that's pretty dope. You got your finger in a lot of pots. Speaking of, okay, so we talked about how the Purple Room began. We talked about CaRaVaN Open Mic, and you mentioned Pants on Fire, and we'll circle back to that. But I'm assuming it was with your other venture with the Showbiz Monkeys that you ended up at the Oscars.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that's a totally other, again, I got all these weird things and none of them, people that are in my day-to-day life still don't always know, what are you doing? Like, what are all these different things? I love it.
So why don't you tell everybody, okay, what is Showbiz Monkeys, and a brief how you got it started and now where you're at today?
Sure. So ShowbizMonkeys.com is an entertainment website that it's been around as ShowbizMonkeys.com since 2007, but it also predates that name change. We started in 2001 as a website called CanadaMovies.net, doing showtimes and contests for movies, first in Winnipeg and Calgary, and then across the country. And for a year or two, we were doing some contest giveaways in the US for advanced screenings and things like that. And right from the very beginning, we had content like movie reviews built into the site and some interviews and things like that. But then when we rebranded as ShowbizMonkeys.com, that's when we really started to push like interviews and coverage beyond movies into TV and comedy and music. And I started, if I was going on a trip, I'd see, well, what can who can I connect with there to maybe get an interview or get some content for the website? And that was still the early days of like heavy online content. So there weren't a lot of places like us doing that sort of thing. So it kind of gave me and gave us, like the writers and the other interviewers and things like that, an opportunity that now there's so many people, it might be a lot harder to get into some of those spaces. But in 2007 and 2008, 2009, in those early years, it was a lot easier to get in contact with comedians that I was a big fan of, or like you mentioned, getting in touch with the Oscars. And they seem to pre-show press passes, so not like day of, but like week before, press passes to international outlets of any kind, because we got it for a number where we could go down to Oscars and shoot on the red carpet as they were setting up until the morning of. And then there's a cutoff, obviously, when the big outlets start coming in with all their stuff and the smaller or international outlets get, moved off to the side.
A polite way to say bumped.
So, yeah, well, bumped, but just fair. But it gave us the first year, we tried to treat it as like, okay, we're going to do some serious reporting. But this is, again, the early days of the internet, where especially when you're outside of the country, you don't have access to very high upload speeds to be able to create a lot of content that is relevant for an award show that's happening when you're there.
Real-time reporting is tough.
So we filmed some video and all this stuff, but really all we got out was written pieces and tweets and such. And then I realized the next year when I went and brought down a comedian friend of mine, I was like, oh, we can turn this into something else and we can film more unique things on the red carpet, because who has this backdrop to actually shoot pieces? And so I went three times with a local comedian, Aaron Murky, who's been everywhere. He's studied at Second City and been in Toronto, Vancouver, LA, New York, and like he's a pro. And so he came down and we shot essentially comedy pieces, but treated them more as like serious Oscar coverage. So we did that 3 different times. Then I was able to go with a good friend who also writes for the website as well, Andrew Lizotte, another comedian, and we filmed. That was my last year that I ever went down. And then they cut off that pass. That pass doesn't exist anymore, and so we don't have that access, and that's okay. I went there a lot of times. Literally, I shouldn't have been there any times. Like really, if you think about like who should be down there covering those kinds of events, not people filming comedy bits. But we got the opportunity,
and you ran with it, and you made it work.
And we had some fun and produced some pretty cool pieces while we did it. And then Andrew has gone on to do probably taken over more of the podcast recording and interview side of things for the website than me. Certainly when it comes to comedians, he's usually the one getting in there and having chats with them.
I have a photo of you at the Oscars that I'm going to try and bring up on the screen here. There you go. This is you here at the Oscars.
Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah. It's right here, this way, and then I can point at me.
And I'll point.
That's pretty good.
This is Paul. So
I think that's pretty good. That's like probably 6 years ago, and I don't think I've aged a day.
That's pretty good, actually. That's the baldness, right? They say bald. Like if you're bald already, it's hard to age because it's all in the eyes.
Yeah, I started shaving my head way before.
You must have a better
moisturizing
regimen than I do. Because I've got the bald thing going for me, but I look.
You look great.
You're too kind, sir.
You look great.
You're too kind. Also lying, but I'll take it. So back to the subject at hand. So you got to do all this really cool stuff, and now how did you end up shooting a video with Lonely Island's Jorma?
Okay, so this is the early days of the website. Again, I mentioned that it was it's very easy to have access back then. You could get in touch with people a lot easier because there weren't a lot of outlets like us doing things. So I was a massive, massive Lonely Island fan before anyone from SNL had ever heard of them. They had been producing videos on their own out of LA, just trying to make it in the film industry, in the comedy world. And they were part of this monthly series called Channel 101 in LA. That was a brilliant thing. Dan Harmon, who created Community and Rick and Morty, was a big part of Channel 101. He may have even been running it at the time. I can't quite remember. But he was heavily involved. Lots of great people were involved at the time. But Lonely Island were producing these videos, and, you know, a core of people in LA were watching them, and then they would put them online, and hardcore comedy nerds like myself were also watching them all over the place. And they had produced a pilot episode for Comedy Central for their own sketch show. And then when that didn't fly, they put that online, and it was great. And then suddenly they got this SNL gig, and it was like pretty cool to see this like small group of people that you saw their work progress suddenly be on SNL. And so a year after they were on the show for a year, rather, they got to produce this movie called Hot Rod. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a hilariously weird, almost independent style movie starring Andy Samberg.
Yeah, it was
Yorma's in it. Directed by Akiva Schaffer. So that's the trio.
But that
of
was
the Lonely
it was
Island.
such a cool movie, but it definitely felt like they took an SNL skit and stretched it to 2 hours. Like that's the sense you got.
Yeah, there's no like emotional depth to the movie. It's a series of like sketches basically, but they're great sketches, and they all like fit together in this silly movie.
Super fun.
That for someone who had been watching them online, suddenly they have this movie that's like in theaters and being released by Paramount. It's like, what is happening? And so through that, I was in touch with, there was like kind of a silent fourth member of the Lonely Island who was involved with a lot of their production and doing a lot of videos. His name is Chester Tam. Anyone who's like a hardcore fan of theirs knows who he is. And he ran their website at the time, and I just reached out to him because I was a fan of the group for so long that I knew how involved he was, even though he wasn't on SNL and hadn't made that move. And I reached out to him, and he was my first or second interview ever that I did for the website, but in life. And because he was not coming from the studio machine, I was just reaching out to him directly. We were able to have like a really long chat about all sorts of things, Lonely Island and the business, and obviously Hot Rod. He's in the movie. He plays a weird character that pops up here and there called Richardson. And then through the fact that we have been around for a while and have all these connections on the movie side of things, I got an official interview with Andy Samberg that was like, you know, on the phone, the publicist puts you in, you have 7 minutes to answer. He's been, you know, on the phone for 5 hours already, that kind of a thing. So we had these two pieces of info, or two pieces of content. One that was this little interview with the star of the movie, but also this more in-depth interview with Chester. And then because of that, they just all became aware of us. And then the next year, when I was going to the Oscars for the first time, I reached out to Chester and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. Do you want to do a follow-up interview? Now the movie's come out on, home video, DVD. Do you want to talk about the movie more?" And then he said, "Yeah." And then the night before, or it might have even been the morning of, he called or messaged and said, "Hey, can I bring someone else?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to just patch you in on a phone call." I'm like, "Okay." And he patches in Yorma, and he's like, "Hey, Yorma's in LA right now, taking a sabbatical from SNL because he's shooting this movie. He has some ideas. Can he come too?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so then this interview that was going to be just chatting about the movie turned into an idea that Yorma had of making it into this like 2-minute weird video.
That's awesome.
Where we took turns using my camera to shoot a bunch of stills, and then I got them sent off to him, and then he produced this 2-minute video with this weird song he made, and then sent it back to me. And
there you go. When I post this to the WPG's website, I am going to need a link to that video. Does it exist? Is it like on YouTube?
Yeah, it does exist. It used to be on Chester's account, but he scrubbed that a long time ago. And so a couple years ago, I replaced it and put it up on our YouTube account.
So we're going to get the link to that.
A flashback.
And then
kind of
when
thing.
I post this on the WPG as a post, then I'll include this video, and then underneath it I'll put the Yorma video that you are talking about. I'm very intrigued. I haven't seen it.
It's me, Yorma,
and I haven't
Chester.
seen it, so I'm very excited. That's really, really cool. That's super cool.
And so just an example for like how I have expectations of what Hollywood people could be like, right? Like, inaccessible and in their own head and all these things. And I'm certain there are lots of people like that. But certainly when you're coming from the comedy world, and the kinds of people that I've seeked out to want to interview have almost universally been kind and generous people. And as a quick example of Yorma being a kind and generous person, I hadn't seen him since that time. He directed a little-known movie that has now become a TV series that's about to come out, or might have even come out in this last week or so, called MacGruber, starring Will Forte.
I saw that, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that was a skit. And it was. It was a weird SNL sketch, and then they turned it into a feature film that is bonkers, that Yorma directed. And then it did. Yeah, I don't remember it getting really good reviews.
Like, I think it had negative people going to see it in theaters. But then it really got a following. It became a cult classic on like streaming services and DVD and that kind of thing over the years, to the point where they developed and have now shot and are about to release a series for Peacock, the NBC streaming service in the US. And so anyway, when Yorma was like in the middle of directing that movie, and they were about to like release the trailer, out of the blue, I get this voicemail from him where he was like, "Hey, can we do an interview where the trailer's about to drop, and it would be great to get some press out there." And so I was like, I've never been like, for someone at that level to like reach out to me rather than me having to be like, "Please let me do an interview." So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So that was great. But then I think it was that year, like around that time, where the song "I'm on a Boat" came out. It debuted on SNL as a digital short and was a huge hit with T-Pain and all of that. And then there was here's another Winnipeg connection here. There was a long running annual event called the Funk Boat in Winnipeg that ran for many, many years, put on by DJ Co-op and DJ Honeycutt and a bunch of other people, where they would go on one of the river boats on the Red River and have a night of just old school funk music. And it was so fun. And I had been involved in it, not involved, just going, just a person that liked it and went with my friends. I was a patron. And then "I'm on a Boat" came out, and I was like, for sure they're going to be playing that song, even though like it's not 70s, 80s era funk. Like, they're going to play that song. It's huge right now. And so just on a lark, I emailed Yorma and said, "Hey, there's this event that I like to go to. It's a cool staple in Winnipeg. They're going to be playing the Lonely Island song, even though you're not on the song." Like, they alternate who's in which songs, and he isn't actually on that one. Akiva and Andy are. But I was like, is there any way you could record a quick intro that can be played before it? And didn't hear back from him. Totally fair. This is literally while he's shooting MacGruber.
The show, not the movie.
I think New Orleans.
Oh, the movie.
The movie. This is years ago. Yeah, years ago. The show was just recently shot last year.
I got an alert from CTV saying it's available to stream. So.
Yeah. So this is like years ago. He's in the middle of directing his first feature film, and then like a couple days before the Funk Boat, I get this email saying, "Hope this works," with like 2 audio files. And he created this with like special effects of like explosions, this weird sound effect with him introducing the song for the Funk Boat. And so I immediately sent it to DJ Co-op, and he's like, "This is amazing." And then they played it on the Funk Boat. But just like such a small thing that benefited
12 people. I'm just kidding.
Whatever, 200 people in Winnipeg. Like, yeah, a small amount of people in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And he went out of his way to do that. Out of his way to do that when he didn't have to. And I definitely said in my email, "I know you're busy. You don't have to record." And again, I was hoping he would like, go on his phone and record
a cameo,
10-second, not even video, like just a 10-second like audio clip of just saying, "Hey, this is Jorma. Here's I'm on a boat." But no, he turned it into this production thing. Anyway, he's just, some of these people have been the nicest, and he's right up there. So yeah, sometimes meet your heroes.
You know what?
They say don't meet your heroes, and I totally get. I've heard of those
I've had experiences
but,
both ways. I certainly have. Where you meet somebody and you're like, this person, like Alan Doyle from the Great Big Sea. He is A1 human being. A1, love that guy. And I'm not gonna name names, but awesome. I have met some people that I'm like, oh, and as famous or more famous, and they just turn out to be just like, oh, who I will call out. I'm not a fan of his anyway, but Brad Marchand, I don't like that guy. I'm from the East Coast, he's from the East Coast, and he's just like, when you meet him in real life, he is every bit the tool bag that you see when he's over on TV licking people and all this stuff. Like, so sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes, and you got to be careful who you make your heroes, because it's not like there weren't warning signs about that guy. But when you meet somebody and you're like, I don't know, is he going to be a nice guy? Is he not going to be a nice guy? But let me tell you, Alan Doyle, one of the nicest people, and I mean he's an East Coaster from Canada, so you kind of expect that from him by default. So then we got guys like Sidney Crosby, who's too quiet to know if he's a nice guy or not, and so he's like, what is the color of neutral? Is it tan or is it gray? Because he's that, like, as a person, amazing hockey player, pride of the country, all that, but as a human being, I mean, like he's
fine.
Right.
You just don't know.
But
you just,
that leads me to believe that he's probably a really nice guy, but you need to get to know him, right? But there are guys that you're just like, when they grow up, they're not going to be a nice person, and it turns out to be true. But yeah, so I totally get your point about like, meet your heroes, because you never know, and I'd rather know, Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm also not going to name names, but there's a few people that I've met who
disappointed. I would say.
Yeah, we're just like what you said. You said there are people the same level or even bigger than Alan Doyle that might not have been. But what's worse is when it's people that are who are less famous,
more entitled,
but still have that.
Yeah, and I get that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just like, that has nothing to do with being famous. I think that's just a character trait in them, regardless of where they are on a fame level or who knows who they are. It's just who they are as a person. And some people are there's
not that
nice
too.
People. And that's okay. It's not, but it's part of the world.
So basically, like, I get that people at that level sometimes, like, how do you get there? Well, everybody is constantly telling you how great you are. And for some of those people that are really successful, they don't run into a lot of the same hurdles as other people, and they plow right through. So they're just like, I did it. Why can't you get your shit together? You know, and it's not apples to apples necessarily. So anyway,
Right. Yeah, but yeah, like I think with Yorma, like and all those, like Chester even more so. I got a chance a few years later. He directed a film for Netflix, and I got to do an interview with him after not talking to him for a number of years. And again, just as kind and generous as he was back then. Even though again he had gotten to a level much higher than he was when we first chatted. But yeah, I think people that struggled themselves, or at least can see themselves in you, in that, like, they knew for, Showbiz Monkeys and the kind of work I was doing, they knew we were hustling, that we weren't this big name in entertainment. We weren't Entertainment Tonight. We weren't even a big website or anything like that. We were, Winnipeg based, trying to reach as many people as we could outside of Winnipeg. And yeah, they were just nice, and still are. There's still people that are nice. I should stop referring to Showbiz Monkeys as like something in the past. We still exist.
Right.
We don't have a lot of content right now because a lot of what we've pivoted is festivals and big events. Those. There haven't been a lot of those the last couple of years.
I don't know if you know about this little website called the WPG Magazine, but it started as an events-based thing that we have pivoted, a little bit. So I understand is what I'm trying to say. I get it. I'm with you.
Yeah. And so if you go to our website, which is again right there, thank you very much.
Showbiz, for those listening to the audio podcast, www. Because apparently you have to say that. I don't know why people still say that to this day, because it literally doesn't matter anymore. But www.showbiz, B-I-Z. So S-H-O-W as normal, B-I-Z, showbizmonkeys.com.
Yeah.
Monkeys has the S, it's not a Z.
Plural.
Showbizmonkeys.com. So, continue.
Yeah. For a while, I owned the singular version and the misspelled version of Monkeys, but then I was like, whatever. I'm not paying that extra $20 a year for people mistype spell Monkeys, I-E-S. But yeah, if you look there now, you'll see some interviews from last year. There were a couple interviews we were able to do as part of the virtual Just for Laughs festival. And we've got lots of archived content, but we have new content coming up because I had mentioned him before, Andrew Lizotte, a Winnipegger who now lives in Toronto, a great comedian and writer. He's got a podcast that he will be launching soon. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the date, because it's his podcast to launch. I know the date, but I don't know if if he wants it out there yet. But it's very soon. He'll be launching a podcast that will be less tied. Right now, the podcast that we have ongoing on there that he's taking part in is the kind of sort of maybe like a podcast. It's because it's irregular. It's based around when we have opportunities to do interviews. So that hasn't been very regular as of late. But this one will be regular. It's not tied to special events. And it's a great podcast that you should check out.
I found it. You found
it.
Your website.
What did you find?
I apologize to the people who are watching the video. They would have seen one of our LZ Sports Show graphics pop up a second ago. That's on me. I screwed up. That's my bad.
Hey,
it's a good show, and it's coming back soon, but the format will be a little bit different. Well, won't touch any more on that today, but I do have on the screen there Showbiz Monkeys as your
so if you click on, or is it a screenshot, or is it
it is, I don't know if I can play with it. It's just a browser source. No, I can't mess with it. I just threw it into OBS.
Anyway, that's Showbiz Monkeys. Yeah. So anyway, you'll see lots of old content, 20 years of content, all the Oscar coverage we talked about, the stuff with the Lonely Island is on there, movie reviews, TV recaps from like days gone by, and more recently some interviews with comedians during the pandemic, and then a new podcast launching soon.
Ooh, so am I your first guest? Obviously, I'm the obvious choice since I'm in every movie.
No,
right?
it's Andrew's podcast.
Fair enough. I'm just kidding anyway.
If I was launching a new podcast, sure, but I'm not. I have an old podcast. It's been around forever.
And why don't you tell people about that?
That's the kind of sort of maybe like a pod. That's what I was going to get you to.
Oh yeah, I
couldn't. If you could, but you can't. You can't.
Although,
you couldn't.
If you're listening to this, go to Showbiz Monkeys, and you can click.
You can go.
Yeah.
You can go and click around. Yeah. So anyway, it's the home of all the audio interviews that we've done over the years in a podcast form. You can go to all the same places that you can find this podcast.
There
you can
go.
find that
See?
podcast.
Now you're smart.
And so, you can go there and just see an archive of our interviews with comedians and musicians and actors and directors.
So go to showbizmonkeys.com and you can find them.
And it literally is all over the place, because sometimes we get 10 minutes with someone, and sometimes, like a couple years ago, I get an hour to talk with Poxley Workman, one of my heroes. Again, do meet your heroes.
Yeah.
And I get an hour to talk with him, and so that's on there, but also like a 10-minute interview with, a musician or a comic that's at JFL is there too.
JFL being Just for Laughs for those not in the know.
Just for Laughs.
So not everyone is a comedy geek.
So it's
speaking of comedy geek, that's you.
Yes. That's I'm not just comedy geek. I got in early, got in on the ground floor, and got the
comedy
usernames.
geek at comedy geek, spelled exactly correctly, no numbers, nothing. That's how early he got in. So at comedy geek on Instagram and Twitter.
I always, as soon as a new thing becomes a thing, I'm like, I gotta at least download the app and get the username.
Right.
Even if I'm not going to use
I'm
this.
the same way, but nobody's using my username because because I'm from Halifax. My username forever has been, Mark Adam HFX. So now I live in Winnipeg and my daughter's here. I'm going to be here for a long time. I'm debating, do I switch over to Mark Adam WPG? Because now I have to go see, and I guarantee nobody took that username on any platform, so I could easily switch over. But yeah.
But also, I think it's normal to, like, even if you move someplace and like stay there for a long time or stay there forever, like, I think it's normal to like keep a piece of your history with you.
I'm never letting go.
I don't think it's weird if you keep that
my HFX brand, because like everything is everything in my entire life is connected through that. So that would be catastrophic to try and change it over. I mean, if I ever wanted to just go off the grid, I would just stop using that, and no one would know what happened to me. Yeah,
it could be anything else.
No one would ever find
how to find you.
Which is good and kind of sad at the same time, depending on how you look at it. But why don't we talk? Speaking of Canadians you want to talk to and meeting people, why don't we talk about Pants on Fire? Explain the concept, how it worked, and then you had a rather high profile for Canadians, a high profile guest on your show,
and for comedy nerds
that's
all over
very
the world.
True.
So Pants on Fire is a comedy game show that is loosely based off of a British TV panel show featuring comedians called Would I Lie to You, which is actually getting a US version very soon. It's I'm very curious how the format will switch to that. But we took it and changed things a little bit to make it conducive for a live show format, and it is as you can probably tell from the name, Pants on Fire, it's a a game show where lying is involved. There are two teams with a team captain. The team captains stay the same every show, and a wonderful host. If you know Winnipeg comedy, you know Robin Slade, one of the best improvisers in the world, and we happen to get her in Winnipeg at all times, which is great. She's the host, and two great team captains, Aaron Pridham and Andrew St. Mars. And then we have rotating guests coming in, and they basically have to spin a tale or tell the truth on a story. The key being, when they pull up the card, they don't know what it's going to be. And if it's not a true story, they have never seen it before. So they have to really have their improvisational skills ready to go, because they have to tell a story and convince the other team that it's real if it isn't, and convince the team that it's a lie if it's true. So it basically is just a source for silliness and banter between
and where
funny
is this
people.
found?
And so it is a live show. So again, it hasn't existed for almost 2 years now. I think the last live one we put on was in January 2020.
And when you say live, do you mean live in
so-
person? Like people go to a venue and sit and do this?
Sorry, yes, live in person. People go
So not a
and
live
sit in a
stream.
venue and watch this. This is not a live stream. It is not recorded, other than me recording it for promotional purposes or whatever. But it is not recorded. It is a live show, but with all the pizzazz of like a real game show. So we have video and slides and all the stuff that you would expect to introduce people on a real game show. We have theme music. We have
That's
intro
awesome.
and outro music. We have fake sponsors that Robin just creates the day of the show. She picks something and does ad reads for it, like old timey game shows throughout the show. And then we have live guests who
That's
then
way
get
better
to
than dead guests.
grill
But
each
yeah,
other and be silly. It absolutely
be a
is.
bummer of a show.
And yeah. And it's very fun. We've been in a number of different venues. The last place we did it was XQ's, because as I said, I do a lot of events there. It's a great home base with Sal and the XQ's
anybody in the west
folks,
end of Winnipeg would be very familiar
giving us
with
opportunities.
XQ's.
Definitely. And it's just a good size space to put on a big event where people can be, you can have a good crowd. Everyone on stage can be spread out and not crammed in. Big video screen, because again, like I said, we have the visual elements. So having the video screen is very helpful.
I wish I knew about this, and I wish I could go. So you and I are going to talk off screen here. Okay, we'll
eventually it'll come back.
Is that a wink, wink, nudge, nudge? Is that what that is?
It's just a matter of. It's just we have no specifics planned, but we definitely plan to bring it back when things are like safe and comfortable, and when we don't have to worry about will we have to cancel this, because there have been periods over the last 2 years where things have absolutely been pretty safe and comfortable, but it's such a roller coaster that we didn't want to plan something that we might have to pull back from. We want to wait until we can plan something that we know we're doing. And if that means waiting an extra 6 months or a year, then we wait an extra 6 months or a year.
Never mind. We'll talk about it off screen. The wheels are turning. It's fine. But so you mentioned, and I don't want to get political. We're not getting political about it. But how has COVID, the pandemic, the lockdowns, the restrictions, all of this, how heavy has the effect been on your business? How heavy has it affected all the different facets? Because there's a lot of things going. Obviously, Pants on Fire isn't coming back because you don't want to reintroduce it in a pandemic state and restrictions and da 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 da. Purple Room has a lot less shows to fill. CaRaVaN Open Mic has basically been almost exclusively online for the last 2 years, through Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, I don't know if you guys experimented with Twitch yet, but like there's all these different things going on. So like how heavy have you found that effect, and how, I guess, okay, we'll just start there and then I have more questions.
Well, two things. So one, hindsight's 2020, and the fact that we decided to, like, years before the pandemic, pivot to being this roving venue rather than like investing in a physical space, which seemed like what we needed to do to grow. And the fact that it didn't come together, even though we were trying, and then we decided, well, let's just run with what we can do. I mean, seeing how difficult it's been for venues and, restaurants and bars and theaters and all of that over the last 2 years, I can't even imagine what it would be like if we had invested in a physical space. So that's not to diminish what all those people in those industries are going through. Just lucky that we weren't there, and that we are the type of thing that if we put on events, great, we put in the work and we hopefully make a little bit of money on it. But if we're not putting on events, we're not losing anything. We're just losing out on the opportunity to do it. And so in that way, obviously, like you said, we haven't been able to put on a lot of events other than some outdoor events at the Manitoba Night Market the last 2 summers, and then some periods where we've been able to pivot to having CaRaVaN be in person at XQs, either on the patio or inside. This last fall, we were inside up until the current
even
situation.
Because there was a lot of people that weren't willing to go to a physical space, and so you still provided that live stream, but from the venue, right?
Yeah, and then now we've switched back to virtual on Instagram Live, which is where we first started. When things, again, we've had to pivot with CaRaVaN a lot. Like when the Purple Room wasn't a thing anymore, when like the building shut down, like it was let's just say it wasn't expected. It was expected in the sense that you probably knew that it was coming, but like when it happened, it was unexpected. And like within 2 weeks, we had a new space for CaRaVaN, and we're like, so CaRaVaN has pivoted a million times. We've had venues say, we don't want you back. Not even we don't want you back, just like we need to find a new venue. It's not going to, we're not going to, after coming back from being at the Cube in the summer, we don't have a space anymore. Let's find a new space. Like, we've done that a lot. So this was just another pivot where we're like, well, we want to keep it going, so I guess we'll do it online. I saw a great comedian that has come up for a couple comedy fests in Winnipeg, but he's from originally from the East Coast. He lives in LA. Ron Lynch. If you would probably recognize his face if you're a big fan of comedy. If you watch Bob's Burgers, he's a regular recurring voice on Bob's Burgers. Anyway, great comedian. And I saw, like, in that week when like everything was shutting down in March 2020, I saw him move his weekly show in LA, which I've had the opportunity to perform on, actually. It's a great show called The Tomorrow Show. And he shifted that live show to Instagram Live, like in a snap. He's like, well, we'll do this. And I was like, oh, well, we can do this too. Let's try it. So like the next Monday, we just said, we're going to be doing this on Instagram Live, and we'll see how it goes. And so we're lucky because we don't have, a lot of monetary investment in physical spaces that we can shift to online, and it's fine. It's not the same, and we're missing out on the personal, like this last, like we went back to in-person events in July or August this year. Can't remember exactly when, all the way through till the end of December. And like, it was so great to like see people again in person and have those conversations with these people that have been coming to the open mic for 4, 5, 6 years or longer, and have those, relationships flourish. But while we're missing that, it's still good that we can just, go online and still meet every Monday and have that sort of thing happen. So and same thing with Showbiz Monkeys. Like, the website's not going anywhere. We have 20 years of content that's sitting there. When the opportunities come in, we'll be back and we'll start, I'll be back at Folk Fest doing interviews and producing, video clips and putting them up online. We'll have someone out at, Just for Laughs in Toronto or Montreal doing interviews. We'll be in those places when we can be in those places, but it's not dependent, like my livelihood isn't dependent on that. I have a day job. These are all my extra things,
which, by the way,
way
is
too many extra
unfathomable. If you are listening to this, all the things he has listed are hobbies and side hustles that he does outside of his full-time job. So, like, I don't know about you, I've been hustling my butt off, especially running a website that is event dependent during a pandemic. It has not been great. Ironically, I don't know if I would have found the time to actually build the project if there wasn't the first lockdown that happened in 2020. So ironically, the pandemic allowed me to create this business, and then it went on for so long. Literally, we're 2022. We're coming up on 2 years since the first lockdown, I can't believe how much extra stuff you're doing. And I don't know if you're masking right now or if there's a constant sense of panic and dread in your body. Like, but that's what I feel all the time. I just constantly feel like I am super far behind. I'm not doing enough. Like, you have so much on the go. Does that hit you at all?
It certainly does. There are times when I'm like, I tell my wife, like, oh, I've got work to do. And she's like, well, I thought you already were doing, the work yesterday. And I was like, no, that's my, like I have Showbiz Monkeys work to do now. Like, that's job that I, get paid for to contribute to this family. But then I have this other thing that is just fun, and I got to do a little bit of work for that now. But again, thankfully, I can choose what I want to do for that. Other than like specific, if there's an event coming up, obviously I have to work on that event. Or if, we're launching this Andrew's launching this new podcast, so I wanted to get some things updated on Showbiz Monkeys. The last week, I've done a lot of work on the back end of it because I also build the website, and because that's my day job as a web developer. And so, when there's something time specific, I can work on it. But day to day, I can choose, this is something I want to do, or this is something that is not a high priority, so it doesn't need to be done right now. Whereas for people that it is there are people that run websites like yourself and other sites that are more like Showbiz Monkeys, that are more like entertainment based or whatever, where it is their job. They've turned it into their job. And the last 2 years have no doubt been, different. Let's just say different.
And it's annoying to me. I have no concept of what it was like to run the WPG magazine pre-pandemic, because it was born out of me being at home and having the time to do it. And so I just was like, I'm finally going to take a chance on myself. And, this face wasn't getting any prettier. So 21 years in the food service industry was your options at this point, when you look like this, as move into management or retire and find something else to do. So I was like, I'm going to take a chance on myself. And I jumped out there with the WPG magazine. And that has been my main focus. I do some side hustling because I still do graphic design and, audio and video production for stuff as well on the side to make some extra money and things. But this is my life, and I don't have a concept of what it was like to do it when there were events on a regular basis. So my entire experience has been a battle.
But imagine how busy you'll feel once things are happening on the regular constantly.
Yeah, I wonder, am I going to...
You'll be like, how am I going to cover all of these things?
To be relieved because it will be less of a struggle to manufacture content? Or am I going to be overwhelmed because now it's like there is too much to do? right? Like where's my head gonna go and which direction, find that middle ground.
Hopefully you'll be able to find the middle, right? Where again, kind of the same way with Showbiz Monkeys, because there was a period when we rebranded where I was like I said, there weren't a lot of sites like ours. Like in 2001, when we started as CanadaMovies.net, we were the only people across Canada giving out, you listen to the radio or you see on TV or in the newspaper, you have a chance to win movie passes to advanced screenings. It happens all the time. We were the only ones doing it on the internet in Canada. Yeah. Like there was one of the people that helped start that website with me was doing it for a local Winnipeg website. And they were the only ones doing it. And the studios were like, this is great. Can you do it beyond Winnipeg? And the person involved in that Winnipeg website didn't want to go beyond Winnipeg. So I got involved to like build out this national version of it. And while we were the only ones giving away movie passes on the internet, which is just
to think about,
mind blowing. And then now everyone, like, because obviously every radio station has their own website. Like the internet is life.
We've discovered that since March 2020. I'll tell you.
Yeah. And then in 2007, like now there were some, media that had their own websites and some media websites like exclusively, but there weren't that many at that point. And so the thought was, hey, we could turn this into like a big player. But then, we didn't have a lot of money to invest in. To do that, you need either all the time in the world or capital, but capital to hire people. And we just didn't have that. We had, it's all been volunteer writing, myself included, like just, anyone that wants to contribute, here's a home. I'm not making any money. You're not making any money, but we're going to have fun doing this. And when, again, just like with the Purple Room, deciding, let's just move around and like do what we can. Same thing happened with Showbiz Monkeys. It's like, let's just concentrate on the things we want to concentrate and not worry about having a story up every day. Like for a while in the early couple of years, we wanted to have content day and just so much content. And now it's like, no, we'll put out good content when we have
quality
good content
over quantity.
And so when Folk Fest comes around or when these opportunities to do cool interviews come around, we'll take them. And if we can get some original podcasts going on our network, that's great. So we've had some original podcasts in the past that were limited run and have this new one launching, and it's great. We have this home for it. But when you don't have that pressure to like produce up to a certain thing, then it's a lot easier to produce what you're doing. And so hopefully when events start coming back to a normal level, which like they've come back on and off for the last 2 years at various levels, but when they come back to like a normal sustained level, hopefully you can find that middle ground where you're like, this is the amount of stuff I want to cover. I don't need to cover everything. People can like post their events because you have such a great system to do that. People can post their events to have everything listed, but you don't need to like talk about or write about everything. Just find the things that interest you and fit that.
Exactly.
Fit that
the
middle
focus
ground
for us is always very local, and that obviously isn't your focus, and everybody's got these different things. But speaking of, I got you here. One last question, and then I'm out of time. Technically, we're a little over time. But
yeah. See, I told you you're going to regret.
I have zero regrets asking you on the
nature.
show. This has been a wonderful conversation. I have learned even more about you, and I was already impressed with all the stuff that you were involved in. I've learned even more about you and some really cool anecdotes. So I thank you very much for being here. A quick question. What are your favorite events in town to go to, just forgetting your connection, just to be a patron for? You mentioned the Funk Boat.
Dearly departed Funk Boat. Yeah, that was a great. It's been a number of years since that happened, but yeah, that was one. My favorite thing every year. It was even before I was there covering it, but it actually makes it better when I'm covering it. Is the Winnipeg Folk Fest. That's my heaven every year. It's been a tough couple of years not having it, but Like those 4 days are my favorite 4 days of the year. Just the amount of music that I get to see and being outside. I love summer. I love all of that. Everything about it, I love. Even though some of it involves like frantically editing videos on my phone to upload them while the artist is still on stage, and I'm like, I'm gonna get a clip up while they're still performing on main stage, with like good intros and titles and everything. But that's part of it. That's part of the enjoyment. But also then having like picking a set or two to just sit at a stage for 2 hours and just not worry about anything. Maybe take a couple photos, but just watch the music and soak it in and see all my friends. And like, it's just, those are my favorite 4 days of the year. And then there's so many other great festivals. And I have a little bit of that with around Fringe, but like with Folk Fest, I'm a musician myself. And so like music is like the thing. Like, even though I'm comedy geek and I love comedy and I love watching comedy and I like producing comedy, I don't perform comedy. Like, I don't do stand up. You thought I did, because like my name's Comedy Geek and
I've seen
involved in that
I've seen you
world.
host open mics, and you're very funny, you're very natural. So my assumption was that was kind of a thing you did, and it turns out that was an erroneous assumption.
I have no memory. So I can do improv. I've done some improv.
That's new thoughts.
Because you don't have to memorize things. Yeah, those are new thoughts. I can interact with people. And so, but yeah, so I love comedy, obviously, but music is like what I grew up doing. It's who I am. If I have to identify, like, I have a job, I'm a web developer, I put on events, but like, I feel like a musician, right? Like, that just and so Folk Fest is that. And then Fringe is like, I'm not a theater person, but a lot of my friends are theater people, and I've been able to help out on the tech side of Fringe shows before, and so some involvement. And I love that it's 2 weeks in the downtown core, seeing so many all around the Cube, which is like where we do our events every week. And then suddenly there's all these people there, like around there. It's such a cool thing. So it's a close number 2 for me, but there's just something about Folk Fest that, and then obviously we have so many awesome venues in the city that just going to shows at like the Park Theater, or I'm wearing my West End Cultural Center,
which is 2 doors down from where I live,
t-shirt right now. And it's where a year and a half ago. So that space is like very, very special to me. And I've seen some of my favorite musicians, some of my favorite shows of all time there. So I love that. I love all the spaces that we have in this city. We have so many good spaces, even new spaces. Park Alley has opened up just in the last few months during the pandemic, and it's already an awesome space to go see
Carrie
live music.
Bilkowski does a lot of the booking of the music and stuff there. So he actually is lined up to be one of our guests on this very show in March. So hopefully that'll come to be. I want to thank you, Paul, for being with us this week. So again, follow him on Instagram or Twitter at Comedy Geek, and don't forget to follow the Purple Room on Instagram and Twitter, and they're at Purple Room _WPG. So those are the 2 tags you want to go follow. On top of that, I do want to let our viewers know, next week we are scheduled to have Jamie Buckborough, local musician, really great guy. So hopefully, that plan holds up. So we'll see you next week. And again, just showbizmonkeys.com, CaRaVanOpenMic.com, and purpleroom.ca.
Purpleroom.ca. Just a lot of websites. Just go to a bunch of websites.
On the screen and overlap them all at once. Just how many like social media things do we need to cover all at one time? But all that. Follow Paul. Follow the WPG magazine as well. So we're across the board. It doesn't matter what platform. It's always at the WPG magazine, including YouTube.com/the WPG magazine, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I think LinkedIn. Yeah, it's all the WPG magazine. Not yet.
TikTok? Are you on TikTok
I haven't
yet?
broken it. It just seems like so much work to maintain. But we'll see. We'll see. But thank you, Paul, very much for being here. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Winterpeg Report.